Good Tuesday afternoon to you. Welcome to Court TV Live. I'm Julie Grant. We're covering two major trials for you. You can go on our live stream now if you like and watch Ohio versus Dr. William Husel. Or you can join us in Tennessee, where this is opening day of the case against Billy Ray Turner. This is the time for the opening statements. Let's go in together live and watch.
By the foreperson of the grand jury, now became count one of the indictment. State of Tennessee, Criminal Court of Shelby County, November term 2017, count one. The grand jurors of the state of Tennessee duly selected, impaneled, sworn, and charged to inquire for the body of the county of Shelby, Tennessee, upon their oath, present that Billy Turner and Shara Wright, between July 17th, 2010 and July 20th of 2010 in Shelby County, Tennessee, and before the finding of this indictment, did unlawfully, intentionally, and with premeditation kill Lorenzen Wright in violation of Tennessee Code Annotated 3913-202 against the peace and dignity of the state of Tennessee, signed by the District Attorney General for the 30th Judicial District. State of Tennessee, Criminal Court of Shelby County, November term 2017, count two. The grand jurors of the state of Tennessee, duly selected, impaneled, sworn, and charged to inquire for the body of the county of Shelby, Tennessee, upon their oath, present that Billy Turner and Shara Wright, between April the 1st of 2010 and July the 30th of 2010 in Shelby County, Tennessee, and before the finding of this indictment, did unlawfully and intentionally agree, conspire, and act to kill Lorenzen Wright with premeditation, and that the said Billy Turner and Shara Wright did, in furtherance of the conspiracy, travel to the area of Callis Cutoff and Hacks Cross to kill Lorenzen Wright in violation of Tennessee Code Annotated 3912-103 and 3913-202 against the peace and dignity of the state of Tennessee, again signed by the District Attorney General for the 30th Judicial District. State of Tennessee, Criminal Court of Shelby County, November term 2017, count three. The grand jurors of the state of Tennessee, duly selected, impaneled, sworn, and charged to inquire for the body of the county of Shelby, Tennessee, upon their oath, present that Billy Turner and Shara Wright, between April the 1st of 2010 and July the 17th of 2010, and before the finding of this indictment, did unlawfully attempt to commit the offense of first-degree murder as defined in Tennessee Code Annotated 3913-202, in that they did unlawfully and intentionally and with premeditation attempt to kill Lorenzen Wright. The said Billy Turner and said Shara Wright did meet and agree to kill Lorenzen Wright and did take substantial steps toward the completion of this crime by acquiring firearms to commit the act, recruiting an unindicted co-conspirator to help, and on the part of said Billy Turner, traveling to and entering Lorenzen Wright's home outside of Atlanta, Georgia, to commit said criminal offense. While this offense was committed in part in other jurisdictions, it began in Shelby County, Tennessee, all in violation of Tennessee Code Annotated 3912-101 against the peace and dignity of the state of Tennessee, again signed by the District Attorney General for the 30th Judicial District. Again, it's indictment for murder in the first degree, conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree, criminal attempt murder in the first degree, a true bill returned and signed by the foreperson of the grand jury on December the 12th of 2017.
Mr. Hagerman. And Mr. Collins, how does Mr. Billy Turner plead to this indictment?
Your Honor, Billy Turner pleads absolutely not guilty.
Ladies and gentlemen, the jury issue has been formally joined to this case. Mr. Perry, on behalf of Mr. Turner, has entered a not guilty plea to all three counts of the indictment. Mr. Hagerman, you may proceed with an opening statement.
What does it take to kill a man? What does it take to kill a man? What does it take to kill a son? To kill a father of 6 children? To kill a brother? To kill a friend? To kill a homegrown hero? High school basketball star, turned college All-American, turned NBA player, and no matter where he went to play, Atlanta, Los Angeles, Cleveland, he always came back here. Every offseason, every chance he got. What does it take to kill a father, a son, a man at Memphis running through his veins? What does it take to kill Lorenzen Wright? Before we answer that, let's hear what it sounds like to kill a man. Let's hear what it sounds like to kill Lorenzen Wright. July 18th, turning into July 19th. It's just after midnight. It's actually 12 a.m. 12 minutes after midnight. The call is to Germantown 911. You'll hear 2 male voices. The first male voice is the caller, Lorenzen Wright. The second male voice is the killer. And then you'll hear gunshot after gunshot after gunshot.
Starting on 911, where's your emergency? Hello? 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 Oh, I have nothing but gunshots.
That's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like to kill a man. That's what it sounds like to kill Lorenzen Wright. In a field separated by a barbed wire fence, not too high, off a little cut-through road near Hacks Cross, Callus cut off. There's trees, 2010, no street lights, a little road that nobody uses, next to a field separated by a little barbed wire fence. That's what it sounded like to kill him there in the middle of the night. But what did it take? But what did it take to kill him? I'll tell you what it didn't take first. It didn't take courage. It didn't take strength. It didn't take bravery. It didn't take anything good. Instead, it took 2 things. The first was a plan. The first thing it took was a plan. First, Lorenzen had to be lured to Memphis. He was living in Atlanta. And then he had to be lured in the middle of the night to a little road where he had no business being. next to the field where this could happen with no witnesses. And the hope that the people that did it could get away. That's the first thing it took. A plan to get him there, to get him alone, to get him vulnerable, and to do this without witnesses and with the hope to get away. But the second thing it took was evil. Evil in the heart. It took an evil heart to do this. And I'm not talking about Billy Turner's heart. I'm not talking about him. It took a particularly evil heart. One that was filled with jealousy, with desperation, with hurt, with greed, and literally 2 million reasons to want him dead. I'm talking about Sheriff Wright, Lorenzen's ex-wife. An evil heart, greed. But like yesterday, when we planned our bank robbery, Sheriff Wright's not a professional killer. This is not something she does. She doesn't have a phone directory of hitmen. No. She had to reach out to people that she trusted or that were indebted to her, or that, what did we talk about yesterday? Sketchy uncle, maybe with some criminal past. She had to reach out to people like that to get this thing planned, done, and covered up. 2 people in particular. And the first, who I am talking about now, is Billy Turner. Billy Turner was Sheriff Wright's friend. Billy Turner was Sheriff Wright's yard man. Billy Turner was Sheriff Wright's romantic, secret interest. Billy Turner was somebody that Sheriff Wright could trust, manipulate, and use. Evil heart. There's another person there too. Jimmy Martin, also known as J. Martin. Sheriff's cousin. I want to call him the sketchy cousin. We can call him the sketchy cousin. J. Martin, who, after he got out of the Navy, went back to live in Batesville. Batesville's an hour or so from here. And got in trouble. At the time, accused and indicted for a domestic murder, for killing his girlfriend. Sketchy criminal past. Check that box. But more sketchy criminal past who's indebted to Sheriff because Sheriff made his bond. Sheriff was paying for his attorney, for Jimmy Martin's attorney, while he went through the court case about killing his girlfriend. That's who Sheriff Wright reached out to. That's who she manipulated, and that's who she used. That was her. We had a team of bank robbers. That was her team of co-conspirators and killers. Wasn't a great team. Wasn't a great team, but it was her team. Billy Martin, Billy Turner, Jimmy Martin, and Sharon Wright. So, back to what we heard. 12:12 a.m., July 18th, turning into July 19th. 911 call. 2 male voices. Gunshot after gunshot to the Germantown 911 center. Okay. So what does Germantown do? What could Germantown have done? Research the information, get whatever phone stuff they had to get, and figure out where that call was coming from, right? Isn't that what happens when you call 911? Something like that happens? Gunshots, end of phone call. Let's find out where this phone call was coming from. And if they had, they would have been on that little road, Callus Cutoff, within hours. They would have been there within hours of that shooting. And what they would have found, before they found Lorenzen's body in the field, what they would have found was a barbed wire fence that had blood on it from one of the killers trying to hop through it when they chased Lorenzen. They would have found that, and they could have done DNA. What they would have found is another gun. Not even a murder weapon, but another gun that had been fired on that little street during this murder. They would have found it tossed into some bushes down the street. When Sheriff Wright got excited and scared and tossed it, they would have found that too. When they went over the fence, they would have found Lorenzen Wright dead, because he was, shots to the head. They would have found casings, and they would have found bullets. They would have found him freshly dead. They would have been at Shara's house soon after that, because the last place Lorenzen Wright was before he went to Callus Cutoff was Shara Wright's house with her. The police would have been at Shara Wright's house within hours of his 911 call, and they would have found her scrambling right after having done this thing. They would have seen the person that she texted right before they did this, Bill Turner. They would have found him that night, that morning too. They would have found the murder weapon, a 9mm that was responsible for putting the bullets in Lorenzen after he ran into the field. They would have found all those things within hours of this crime. It wouldn't have taken much work after that to find Jimmy Martin, the third person who was part of this conspiracy. He wasn't there when the murder was done. He was supposed to be, but he wasn't. But they would have found him too. They would have found all three. Shara, Billy, Jimmy, murder weapon, phones, evidence, and the case would be over. You want me to tell you what Germantown did with that 911 call? Do you want me to tell you what they did with it? With what you heard? Nothing. Nothing. They didn't even look to see who it was from. They didn't even look to see where it was from. They didn't even tell other jurisdictions, hey, gunshots, end of call. This sounded really bad. They did nothing. Nothing. And so Lorenzen Wright's body sat in the field next to Callus Cutoff for days. One day became 2 days. 2 days became 3 days. His mother, after 3 days, had to come and report him missing. Not Sheriff Wright, not the last person he was with, but his mother had to come forward and report him missing. 3 days became 4, became 5, became 6, became 7, became 8 days. What did we say about the first 48? That's an important time period. We're 8 days past. 8 days past when the Collierville Police Department, not Germantown, when the Collierville Police Department gets phone records and realizes the last number, the last person that Lorenzen Wright ever spoke to was at 12:12 on July 19th, and it was Germantown 911. Oh my goodness. In those 9 days, 9 days, because they did their homework after that. Once they found out that was the number, that he had called 911, you figure out where the phone was. You triangulate the location. You go out there, and what do you know? You find him. And we'll talk about that. But in those 9 days before they found him, that was 9 days for these conspirators, Shara, Billy, and Jimmy, to cover up. And you'll be read the law at the end. A cover-up is part of a conspiracy. A cover-up is a part of a conspiracy. 9 days to cover up this murder. To tell stories, to get stories straight, to go to Callus Cutoff and find the gun that you threw in the bushes, to go to Callus Cutoff and cut down the barbed wire fence that has your blood on it, to take the murder weapon away from Memphis, off the side of a highway, 30 miles from Memphis, down a little turnoff that leads to a landfill, has a little lake to the right, and put the murder weapon at the bottom of a lake where nobody in this world would ever find it. They had 9 days to do all those things. And that's how the murder of a Memphis hero, father of a son, brother, becomes Memphis's most publicized mystery cold case. If only Germantown had done what they should have done, this would have been over by July 25th, 2010. Jimmy, Billy, and Shara would have been charged then. But instead, this became one of the longest and most publicized cold cases in Memphis history. Years. 1 year became 2, became 3, became 6. Now, during those years, the truth, bits of the truth, actually peek out. You can hide stuff, but it's hard to hide stuff completely. A conspiracy Hard to hide a conspiracy and a murder like this completely. So through those 6 years, 2010 to 2016, bits of the truth do come popping out. Investigators do get phone records from Shara, from Billy, and from Jim. They see suspicious texts, suspicious conversations, things that don't make sense. They talk to witnesses who've talked to Shara. Things that don't make sense. And then, a few years into the 6 years, they talk to Jim. What did we say yesterday? If you're picking a co-conspirator, you better hope that co-conspirator doesn't tell it. Well, in 2012, during the 6 years, 2012, Jimmy told it. Jimmy, who is in jail then, having been convicted for the murder that we were talking about of the girlfriend, where Shara had hired his attorney and bonded him out. Jimmy had been convicted, and afterwards he told it that this was a conspiracy to kill Lorenzen, that it was me, that it was Billy, that it was Shara. He gave him details on how it happened. While he wasn't there, he helped the planning beforehand, and he helped to cover up afterwards. He even told him where something was. 2012, he even told him where something was. What did they do with that information in 2012? Better than Germantown, at least they did something. They got a few volunteer divers together. They went to a little lake. It's a turn off the highway, about 30 miles from here on the way to the town. Right after it had rained and the visibility of the water was almost zero, a couple volunteer divers didn't find it. That's how 2012 turns into 2016. 2016, a new group of investigators with a focus. Reinvestigate Memphis's most publicized cold case. Something that's gone unsolved for 6 years. Reinvestigate it. And this time, not with volunteer divers, not after a rainy day, but with the FBI dive team. Professionals who do this for a living. Let's go out to the same lake, next to the same landfill off that highway, and let's search it for real. Let's see if Jim is telling the truth, finally, or not. Let's decide it. One day to set up the grid pattern they're going to use to search, scout the lake. Second day, the FBI divers go into the lake. You'll see pictures of it. There's even a video of it. Within minutes, where Jimmy had said it was, where he had estimated it was, this thing was never supposed to be found. This is the gun that killed Lorenzen, Wright. Right where Jimmy said it was in 2012. At first, when you preserve it, you find something that's been in water, you put it in a bucket with the same water that it's in. And that's what the FBI and the investigators did. Then you drive it ASAP to the crime lab, and you compare it to the casings and to the bullets that they found in Lorenzen Wright. You'll hear from the TBI. This is the murder weapon that killed Lorenzen Wright. It was thrown at the bottom of a lake, and nobody in this world was ever supposed to see this again. But Jimmy led him straight to it. That's step one of the investigation. Truth test for Jimmy. Right where he said it was. The one gun in this world. Pick a co-conspirator, you better hope the co-conspirator doesn't just tell him. Other witnesses. They find other witnesses. They find a nanny, Claudia. It's a nanny for Lorenzen and for Sharon, who was present. Jimmy had told them in 2012 there was a woman there at least one of the times that we were planning this murder that I didn't know. We were in Sheriff's house. There was a woman there I didn't know who heard what we were saying, and she was there. She was younger. She was pregnant. He told him that in 2012. He told him that in 2012. Well, in 2016, they found out who that person was. Claudia Robinson, nanny to the kids. They found Claudia. What does Claudia say? Yeah.
You're not going to miss a moment of the state's open in the case of Tennessee versus Billy Ray Turner, a deacon with a criminal past now on trial for murdering an NBA star. Will the jury find? We're going to be following this trial gavel to gavel for you here on Court TV Live. We're hitting pause. We'll be right back after this.
health care.
Thank you for staying with us here on Court TV Live. I'm Julie Grant. We want to go back into the courtroom exactly where we left off. We're watching the opening statements from the state of Tennessee. The prosecutor saying that this crime required two big things, planning and evil. Let's watch.
Part of it, but I was there. When Sheriff Wright said she wanted Lorenzen Wright dead, and she told Jimmy and Billy, the yard man, to do it. Literally, they were all in the kitchen together. They find other witnesses too. They'll find Billy's car that Jimmy talked about in 2012. They'll find other incriminating evidence. You'll see it during the trial. But they also hatched a little plan. They did an investigation after they found this gun, but they kept it secret. They didn't tell anybody they found this gun yet. They wanted to keep it secret for a while because they had a plan. When we released it to the media, we want to have Shara and we want to have Billy under surveillance. We want to have them under surveillance because we want to see what happens. We want to see what happens. They would have put Jimmy under surveillance too, but Jimmy was in prison. Still in prison for the murder of his girlfriend. When we release this to the media, we want to put Billy and we want to put Shara under surveillance. Released to the media. What do we expect? Say you don't know about this whole conspiracy to commit murder. Say you don't know about any of it. What do you expect from Shara, grieving widow of Lorenzen, mother of his children? What would you expect? For 6 years, the mysterious death of your husband is now close to being solved because we found the murder weapon. Wouldn't you expect? Thank you so much. This is great. This is great because there's somebody out there that killed my husband and we're getting closer to catching him. That's what you'd expect. That's what you'd expect. But instead, under surveillance, she is distraught, despondent, suicidal, and at the time living in California, needs to come back to Memphis ASAP. The first plane I can get, telling hardly anybody, unplanned, nearly suicidal. She needs to get back to Memphis ASAP. ASAP. And so she does. And when she gets here, she needs to make contact with somebody. But not on her own phone. Years ago, she'd been wiretapped. Police listening to your phone. Not on her own phone. I need to use somebody else's phone to get in contact with the person I need to talk to. And I don't need to talk to this person on the phone. I need to see this person in person. And I not only need to see this person in person, I need to have a conversation away from anybody else. Walking up and down the street, looking, trying to make sure nobody's watching. I need to do this ASAP. And guess who that person is? Billy's home. And guess where the police were? In a van on the street, watching it happen. As the two of them, once the gun is found, have to meet, have to talk, immediately. Should probably be talking to Jimmy too, but he's still in jail, prison. You'll also hear when Billy's arrested. Sometime, somebody was talking about it yesterday, talking about their kids or something and confronting them and credibility. Sometimes lies can tell you more than the truth. You'll hear the things that Billy lied about when the police talked to him. You'll hear the things that he had absolutely no answer for. And at the end of this, took a plan, took a conspiracy, took an evil heart to start it and to see it through. Then you'll see the sheriff, that Jimmy, and that Billy are responsible for the conspiracy to kill Lorenzen Wright and for the first-degree murder of Lorenzen Wright.
Mr. Hagerman. Mr. Perry and Mr. Perry, you may proceed with the opening statement.
All right, so that was the opening statement delivered by the state of Tennessee. We thank you all who are watching along with us, tweeting. Many of you felt like the delivery was a little bit slow, a little bit quiet. Trial advocacy is an art, not an exact science. We'll see if the defense opening statement is any different. Perhaps maybe more energy is to come. Stay right there. We're going to see the defense opening statement right after this quick break. You are watching Court TV Live, your front row seat to justice.
276.
Welcome back. When he was asked how his client was pleading, he said absolutely not guilty. So we'll see what he says now in the opening statement. Here is defense counsel's open in Tennessee versus Billy Ray Turner.
I'm glad that Mr. Hagerman started with the question, what does it take? What does it take to kill a pillar of this community? What does it take to take a person's life on a dark road? I don't know if anybody here has ever been to Callus Cutoff, but you can barely get back then 2 cars down that road. So at midnight, during the midnight hour, what would it take to kill a 7-foot basketball star? What would it take to kill a person who had done nothing but bring joy to his family and his friends? They've traveled the world, they've seen great things, they've had experiences that these people lived through this man. What would it take to strike him down if you're his wife? What would it take to try to get him to Memphis if you're his wife at one point? More importantly, at this point, you're not married, but you're the mother of his children. What would it take to do that? Would it take a man who they describe as a yard man, but a man who's got his own business? He doesn't cut just Cheryl Wright's yard. Does it take a man who is her secret love interest that nobody describes as her secret love interest except for the man that y'all are going to have to put this case on in a few days? It's Jimmy Martin. Edna's J. Martin, I think he's called in older cousin Shara's phone book. Edna's J. Doesn't even have his own name or identity to go by. But what does it take to do that? What does it take, as Mr. Hagerman said, to lack the courage that it takes to come and stand in front of a man to man, and say, I'm gonna take your life, but instead to strike you down while you're waiting, while you're supposed to be out if you're the person's ex-wife, and you got him in the car and say, hey, I'm gonna try to call a yard man and see, because he wants to give you some cards on the side of a road. What does it take to do that? What does it take to ask this yard man, who has his own place to live, who has his own car, who has his own motorcycle, who has his own equipment truck, what does it take to ask that person if you can have his car? So that little Jimmy, Edna's J, the trickster, as he goes by in his fledgling rap career, what does it take to get him to give you his car? What does it take to start your investigation at the point of saying, well, I'm going to do an outline from July 17, 2010 into July 23rd, 2010, as opposed to where it's obvious that Jay, little Jimmy, and Shara are talking about going to Atlanta days earlier. It takes a punk's heart that's sitting in prison right now for taking a firearm and shooting his wife or his fiance that he lives with to death. It takes that type of a punk to sit up and come up with a story, and as you're talking to the detectives, to say, they told me this. Who told you this? Billy? What did Billy tell you? He told me that he and Shara put together a plot to drive his car to a road so that he could pull over on the side of the road, and so that Lorenzen can pull over inside the van with Shara, and that Shara would take the gun, and that she would act like she was having an argument with Billy, and then Billy could jump out and shoot him. It would take a person who could come up with that as they're talking to an officer 23 days after they're found guilty of murder in this building, 5 months before they're sentenced to some 18-year sentence for killing his girlfriend. That's what it takes. It takes the type of person who changes facts like a person changes underwear, excuse me. It takes that type of person A person who says, you know what? I had the murder car that night. That's what it's going to take. And then it's going to take, after he figures out that some people probably have talked to detectives, to change that. I wasn't in the car that was used. I didn't have Billy's car that night. But y'all got to listen to this. Y'all going to have to listen to this 10 days out of your life. Listen to it and hear it and digest it. It takes a person that not only can take those facts and spin them. I didn't have the murder weapon that night. I didn't find it myself. Or maybe I did. Well, no, I didn't. It takes a person that can weave and go back and forward and back and forward. I don't even know how to cross-examine this man when he comes in here. But I guarantee one thing, the people on this jury have ears. You have the ability to listen and discern, and I don't think it's going to be too hard to quickly understand that the state of Tennessee made a big old mistake. Now, a few minutes ago, Mr. Hagerman pointed out the mistake that Collierville police made. They made a hell of a mistake. They didn't report it. They didn't report this stuff. They didn't call anybody. Well, guess what the state of Tennessee did? That when this guy says, hey, you know what? I can figure out the murder for you before my sentencing. All right? I can figure out that murder for you. Guess what they do? They give him a permanent get-out-of-jail-free card. Sign this. They signed a contract. Like you go in and buy a car, they signed a contract. No matter what you say, if it changes, if it weaves, if it bobs, there's nothing that we're going to do to you. So this unindicted co-conspirator is a farce. It's a lie. It's nothing. It's something that, as the judge said, a lady from the office reads what we said, think happens, and it goes from there. So you do have calls from Billy, because Billy got his car given to Shara. Shara gives it to Jimmy. Now, I don't think that'll ever be disputed, because even in all the other stuff that he says, he always, I got the car from Shara.
We're seeing a much different delivery style, aren't we, with the defense opening statement. My favorite line was where he was talking about it takes a person who changes facts like they change drawers. We're going to step aside for a break. We'll hit the pause button. We'll get you right back in after this.
deodorant.
Very good Tuesday afternoon to you. Thank you for being with us here on Court TV Live. I'm Julie Grant. We're following two major trials for you this afternoon. If you'd like to continue watching the case of Ohio versus Dr. William Husel, we've got that streaming for you right now. Just go to courttv.com. What we want to do right now is head back into Tennessee. We're seeing opening day playing out here in the case against Billy Ray Turner. So this guy is a deacon. He also, according to the state, had some kind of a romantic relationship going on with his alleged co-conspirator, who is the victim's wife. The victim in this case, NBA star Lorenzen Wright. Let's watch more from defense counsel now.
Hear different facts about what was supposed to have happened on this day. You'll hear facts that there was some meeting and that when they got to the kitchen during that meeting, there were 3 guns. He changes the type of guns that were supposed to be there. It says that there was the pregnant nanny, who we know is Claudia. You'll see her later today. It says that Shara is there. You'll also hear, I hope, if it's truthful, Claudia say, Shara's always talking about Lorenzen's gonna kill her. That ain't nothing odd. It ain't nothing odd if somebody says, hey, somebody's gonna kill him and kill me, and my answer to it is, what am I supposed to do? And it definitely ain't odd for Billy to be there, because once a week, whether or not Shara can pay or she fails to pay, the conversation is always, if you ask them what are the text messages, etc., it's about business with Billy. There ain't no conversation about, I love you. Will you send me a personal picture? Will you send me a picture of your body part? Will you do this, that, or the other? Not from Billy to Shara, but it is from a few other people to Shara. The evidence is going to show, clear as can be, Billy had a well-established life. Billy was living that life in Collierville during that time, in the Memphis area, working, and he was going about life. Also shows he's dealing with church folks. And it was also showed that, you know, I know it's around the perimeters. Let me get it out there. Billy had a history. When Billy was 20, he went to jail. He did his 1.5 years in jail. He got out and he lived his life straight as an arrow. Billy was a man. He dated women. He took care of his responsibilities. He had fun. But he went to church. He went to church during the week. And as you're going to hear from Claudia, he was so slow, her word, that all I knew about Billy, I thought he was slow. I thought he was slow because he stayed that green and straight and narrow. Now, I was wondering yesterday why you heard all of this scenario about a bank robbery and a this and a that, and Paul, as cool as Paul is, kind of got on here about, what about this? What about, you gotta, if it's everybody in this circle, they're guilty. Yada, yada. I said, well, what about if he didn't do nothing? If he's on them, he's guilty. Joy said, I'll instruct you on the law. And you'll get the law at the end of the case. After you measure what comes out of that chair and is told to you, look at the eye contact, look at the body language, look at how the witness tells what they're going to tell. So yeah, you'll see text messages at certain points and it will become clear, and particularly if Jimmy testifies like I think he's going to testify, not necessarily truthfully, but it's the fact that we have his recordings that I know he's going to talk about, you got to get folks' hands dirty some. Now, he doesn't put himself in the person who's getting his hands dirty. He puts himself as the person that, you know, want to get information to blackmail, share. That's what you're going to hear from him. I'm getting information to blackmail, share. So let me be clear. This is what you're going to have to swallow in order to do as Paul, as he whispers, this to find you guilty. This is what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to listen to what a person who a few days after he was convicted of killing his girlfriend goes in and tells detectives that I can solve this. And then you're going to also have to listen to the fact that as he's telling this story, they buy it hook, line, and sinker, and they write him a contract, and they do all of this stuff before they pull Facebook records between Sheriff and Jimmy. Let me be clear on this, because I don't want it to come out that I'm confusing anybody or anything. Before you get concentrated Facebook messages between Sheriff and Jimmy, and you see those messages, and you can take a third grader and figure what they're talking about. And guess whose name ain't no damn near it? Billy. Billy's got his own life that he's living. Billy would loan his car to any of y'all if somebody that he knew vouched for you. He don't know nothing about little Jimmy other than Jimmy comes to the house one day while he's over there.
Ms. Phillips, you call the court into recess, please, sir.
We'll stand to recess.
Okay, so I want to explain something to you. So we just had a bit of a technical difficulty. So we were watching the defense opening statement on the tape, which is a little bit behind where the trial is in real time. So in real time, that's what popped up just now when we had that technical problem, and it kicked our switch from the tape to live. So there you saw the judge standing up, calling a break. You're not going to miss anything. We just have to fix this so that we can get back to where defense counsel was speaking. Much more animated. Isn't he a lot more animated than we saw the prosecutor? Again, it's a style preference. Not everybody tries a case the same way. That is for certain. Let me bring in my guest now on the program to talk a little bit about what we're seeing today. We have with us, standing by in Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Daryl Cohen, and in Atlanta, retired DEA special agent. He's also a retired Memphis police officer. He also trains at the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change, and he consults with the DeKalb County, Georgia Juvenile Court, Agent Ted Golden. And we want to welcome onto the program a new guest. He is a criminal defense attorney practicing in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Andrew Mishlabby. Great to see you gentlemen on the show today. Thank you for being with us, and we're going to continue watching together the opens, but while we have a little break and we're getting everything resolved in technical land, I want to ask you about what we're seeing so far. Daryl, I want to begin with you, please. You were the first guest to join us. You've been watching since we started the broadcast here at noon. What do you think so far of the facts being presented to this jury?
Well, Julie, I think the facts are very different from the way they're being presented. The facts, as the assistant DA presented them, were well thought out, meticulous, and boring. And if he could have been more boring, he'd have to take a boring class. The defense lawyer has been animated and I think excellent, but that doesn't have anything to do with the facts. It has to do with how the jury responds to the facts, how the jury responds to this attorney, the two attorneys. The assistant DA has a long case to prove, and he's got to prove it to the satisfaction of the jury so that it's guilty beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt. But he's setting it out easy, one step at a time, and that's great. But I think he needs a little bit of energy. He has to give that jury some of the energy that they need to get from him. Now, the defense lawyer is doing exactly what he needs to do. He can't change the facts, but he can change the way the facts are perceived.
Exactly. Daryl, we can always count on you to call it exactly like you see it. And many of our wonderful viewers who are tweeting along with us as they're watching on television are saying the same thing, that they felt like the energy was really low. It's not that the story was bad. The state seems to have a more convincing story, but when the delivery doesn't really match the facts, it can leave something to be desired, and defense counsel has bad facts, but a nice presence, very conversational he is, seems to be really engaging well with the jury. Agent Golden, I have a very particular question for you, if you don't mind, please. Seeing as how you served in the Memphis area some time ago, Something that really kind of made my ears perk up with the states open was when counsel was talking about how nothing was done with that 911 call. He played the call. We know it was Lorenzen Wright to be the first voice calling for help. You hear all those gunshots. It's absolutely chilling. And he talks about how like 9 days went by, 9 days where he says these perpetrators covered it all up because nobody bothered to investigate what was on that call. Share with us your thoughts about that, please.
Well, you know, unfortunately, you have hundreds of thousands of calls that come into the 911 operating center. And the difficulty is always where you're calling from and who you are and whether or not we can locate you. So I can understand the circumstances, though it should have been followed upon earlier. Keep in mind the defense attorney's job is to point out things that might appear to be unusual or unresponded to by law enforcement. It's easy to pick something that you think law enforcement didn't do because there's so many things that you have to do right. And in this situation, he's taking advantage of the circumstances, but these things do occur. You know, I called 911 before recently, and gunshots are going off, and the 911 operator says, "What is that?" And I'm the gunshots. So, you know, it happens. And the funny part was, I'm trying to explain to her where we were, and she couldn't understand it. And she said, "I need an address." So even in today's times, there are issues that occur that causes things not to go perfect.
Right, right. No, most definitely. Nothing is perfect, but it's so sad that all that time went by, and perhaps this investigation could have come to a conclusion much sooner. Andrew Mishlabby, question for you, please, about how this is playing out with, we've got an allegation that there were 3 co-conspirators. We've got the wife, Shara Wright, who has pleaded guilty to the facilitation of murder, the murder of her husband, Lorenzen Wright. So she's kind of out of the mix as far as this trial goes. Maybe I would imagine we're going to see her as a witness. But how challenging is that for defense counsel when you've got somebody who's pleaded, you've got another guy who's an alleged co-conspirator, Jimmy Martin, Shara Wright's cousin, who's going to come in and be the state star witness, and then you've got your client, who's the other alleged co-conspirator. How challenging does that make for the defense case?
Well, it's very challenging because he's in the mix. He's part of this nefarious group. And when the government has people testifying against their own interest, admitting, I did this, I was wrong, I'm a criminal, and he's a criminal too, that's very hard to overcome. What the defense has to do is what they're doing, but they have to do more. Right now, the defense lawyer is picking apart statements, showing inconsistencies. The first time he told the story, he said it was one kind of gun. The second time he told the story, he said it was a different kind of gun. All of that is important, and it's important to line all of that up with the burden of proof, of proving everything beyond a reasonable doubt. But to me, he's got to take it a step farther. He has to tell a story that shows why these people are motivated to lie about it. And it has to be more than they're going to get a few years off of their jail sentence for cooperation. I don't think that's very persuasive. I don't think that works. I'm going to be very interested when we hear the rest of the opening statement to see if defense counsel can develop a story that gives the jury a sense of why these people would set Billy Turner up.
Exactly. Andrew Mishlabby, so glad to have you on the program, as well as Agent Ted Golden and Attorney Daryl Cohen. Thank you all. We're going to squeeze in a break, see what's going on in technical land with the recording so we can get back to where we left off. Thank you for watching Court TV Live. Also, if you are curious to see what's going on in the Husel case, you can always go to courttv.com. We've got that trial streaming for you live there as well.
at joincalibrate.com.
Welcome back to Court TV Live, and thank you for your patience. Okay, we have the video all queued up, ready to play more of the defense counsel opening statement. Let's watch.
I'm going to show it to you just like you would any other witness. I don't care if the person has a detective badge on. Ask them to show it to you just like anybody in here would want. Also, listen to those distances because they become very important. And listen to Jimmy. And listen to how he is. Before I sit down, the desperation in here is so clear that I really don't know what to expect. I know that they're gonna probably bring somebody who says, Billy, who's sitting over in the jail watching this, waiting on this day to get before y'all, said, man, Sheriff Flynn, I shot that nigga for her. Side of that. That's all I ask. I also ask that if somebody comes in here that doesn't have any connections or anything that's entrenched or rooted, and that he's all of a sudden marched in, remember the fact that who has a lot of power, a lot of investigatory power, can make a lot of things move, shake, and go in the way that you want, and still weigh the evidence. In this case, it is a thinking man and a thinking lady's case. And I think that you all are the people that can think and see through it, because you can't, there's no way to sit up and say something bad about Lorenzen Wright. He's a great guy. This case, with all due respect to his family and his friends and his fraternity brothers and his close loved ones, this case ain't about him. This case is about Billy Ray Turner. And Billy Ray Turner has a name that once he got out of jail, he dedicated himself to keeping in the right way. And he helped some punk out through his niece or cousin or whatever she is to him, and he's here for it. But guess what? He put his hands in your hands. And I ask that you give that honor, the honor that you have to serve on this jury, the paramount respect that it deserves, and wait until you hear everything to make up your decisions. And I think that here, I'm gonna go through a chart at the end of this about guilt. It's nowhere near beyond a reasonable doubt through the witnesses that they have. But here is one of these rare ring the bell situations where it becomes clear that Billy Ray Turner is innocent and this fiance killer is 100% guilty. But guess what? Y'all ain't gonna get to determine that, and neither will any other Shelby County jury.
Jeff Smith. Should be here about 12:45. Counsel, approach, please.
All right, there we go. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring in our guest for some quick analysis before we head to a break and then hear from the first witness called in the case. With me, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Daryl Cohen, retired DEA Special Agent Ted Golden, and criminal defense attorney Andrew Mishlabby. Okay, so now that both of the opens are in, we know the opening statements are not evidence. You gentlemen all know that. But they do give the jury those first impressions, right? These jurors are hearing the story for the first time. I want to ask you all who you felt was more effective in the open and why, just kind of going around the horn. Andrew, I'll begin with you, if I may, please.
Well, I might be contrary, but I like the prosecutor better. He was soft-spoken. He was a bit disheveled. His necktie wasn't proper, but he had credibility, and he laid out a very methodical case, piecing together all the pieces. Now, the defense lawyer, I thought, was incredibly likable and very animated and had a good style, and everything he said was good. It was everything he needed to say. But to me, personally, the ship didn't quite make the dock. I wanted to know why the co-conspirators were lying. I heard how they were lying, but I didn't hear why.
And the why is key. It really is, especially in refuting allegations as serious and sinister as these are. Agent Golden, who did you find to be more effective and why, please?
Well, clearly the defense has the prosecution has an advantage because they know the facts. But I'll share this with you. There was an occasion where I had an overwhelming case against someone, and the defense attorney made this statement. He said, "Ted, I like you, a nice guy." He said, "But I got to represent my client well, so I may say some things that you may not like, so don't be offended." It's his job to represent his client the best he can, to try to poke holes in the prosecution. The defense attorney was very animated, very well versed in the facts of the case because he's reviewed every report, and he saw places where he can poke holes in those reports. So no doubt, he's going to do the best he can to make things look better for his client in front of that jury.
And I'm glad you pointed that out, Agent Golden. You gentlemen all know this. Practically speaking, you have to go, toe-to-toe with people in the courtroom. It can be very unpleasant and very contentious at times, but often at the end of the day, you're walking out, shaking hands, smiling at one another. In courthouses, it's common for attorneys to, try a case really hard and go at it in the courtroom, and then they're going out for beers after the day is done. And it's not personal, it's purely professional. So civility is always a great thing to see. And it's really great sometimes on court TV when we see it between victims' family members, defendants' family members. It's great to see people getting along in the courtroom. Daryl Cohen, last but not least, I want your take on who you thought was more effective for this jury today.
Like me, like me, like me. And if you like me, you're going to like my client. That's what our defense lawyer has. He does not have the facts. He, I think, set out what he needed to set out. And the why has to come from the testimony or the lack of testimony. So if you like me, by virtue of liking me, it's going to translate to liking my client, who never could have been part of this. And these two co-conspirators, one of whom has already pled guilty, are just plain lying, and they're not likable.
It's funny, as I was watching, I said to our line producer, Valerie, that this attorney has the likability factor. And that's key. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's very key in every trial. Likability is huge. You don't want anyone to hold anything against your client. Daryl Cohen, Andrew Mishlabby, Agent Ted Golden, thank you all so much. You're going to stay with us. What we're going to do is squeeze in a quick break. When we come back, we're going to hear from the first witness in the case. Thank you for watching Court TV Live, your front row seat to justice.
it stinks.
You are watching Court TV Live, your front row seat to justice. I'm Julie Grant. We are waiting for the jury to come back from a break in the case of Tennessee versus Billy Ray Turner. We thought that the first witness was going to be called. The judge initially sent the jury on a quick restroom break, and then it turned into this is a good time to take a lunch break. So just letting you know that case is on a recess right now. The Husel case we have streaming live for you on CourtTV.com. That is the doctor in Columbus, Ohio, who's accused of murdering 14 of his patients. In the meantime, we want to turn our attention to another story making headlines this afternoon. The Jussie Smollett legal saga continues. Get this, the attorneys for the Empire actor have filed an emergency release petition after Smollett's family is claiming to have received a threatening phone call, a call that purports to put Smollett's life in danger. This is according to Rolling Stone. Now, in this anonymous call, said to have been received by one of Smollett's siblings, the caller is describing in graphic detail what he hopes will happen to the actor while he's serving his jail sentence. Now, Court TV does not air graphic content, so we are not able to play the call for you. However, we can tell you that the alleged threat is similar in nature to the 1997 Abner Louima case. He was sodomized with a broomstick handle in a police precinct bathroom by a New York City police officer. Now, this petition for Jussie Smollett also lists a number of other reasons that the actor should be released, including threats across social media, Smollett's detention in protective custody, which his family claims is damaging his mental health. The petition also cites Smollett's compromised immune system, saying that it puts him at risk of contracting COVID-19. Now, on Monday, Court TV reported that Smollett's family was claiming that he had been moved to the psych ward of the Cook County Jail, despite the family claiming that nothing was wrong with the actor. Now, the Cook County Sheriff's Department released this statement. It says in part, quote, now, regarding Mr. Smollett's housing, the judge ordered that Smollett be housed in protective custody. He's currently housed in a location frequently utilized for individuals requiring a high level of supervision and care for mental health needs. This housing may also be utilized solely for security reasons due to the enhanced monitoring that can occur in this setting. Mr. Smollett is not currently on suicide watch. Regarding reports of threatening, hateful, and racist calls received, according to the family, the sheriff's office strongly urges the family to report these alleged calls to local law enforcement. As with all individuals in custody, the safety and security of Mr. Smollett is the sheriff's office's primary concern. Now, regarding COVID-19, there are currently just 15 individuals positive for the virus there at the Cook County Jail, all of whom tested positive at admission over the previous days out of more than 6,100 in custody at the time. The jail, which has been recognized in studies by the CDC, Yale, and Stanford universities as a leader among carceral facilities in the fight against COVID-19. Jussie Smollett is sentenced to 30 months felony probation. He has to spend the first 150 days of that sentence in the Cook County Jail. The court also ordered him to pay just over $120,000 in restitution to the city of Chicago and pay a $25,000 fine. The jury, of course, found him guilty back in December of lying to police about that racist and homophobic attack that he orchestrated in 2019. All right, so let me bring in my guests to see what they think about all of this. Still with me, standing by, we have criminal defense attorney Daryl Cohen, retired DEA Special Agent Ted Golden, and criminal defense attorney Andrew Mishlabby. Oh boy, where do I begin with Jussie Smollett? Maybe with the phone call. And Agent Gold, I really want to tap into your investigatory experience in all your years serving in law enforcement. So the family is who's saying they got the call. This call didn't, go to somebody at the jail. It's not going to, police or guards. This is apparently going to his family. Tell me, how might investigators try to confirm that it is what his family says it is?
Well, it appears that the call was recorded, and it may have been a lengthy call because of the graphic terms that were used in the conversation. So connected to that call is information depending on what kind of device they use to call from. If they call utilizing a cell phone, that number can be tracked. The information can be downloaded to determine where that call was made from, who made the call, who owns the phone that made the call, who else do they call, how often do they call other people. If they use a throwaway phone, then they can find out where it was obtained from and possibly get some video that shows where it was obtained from and who bought it. So there are a lot of different ways that investigators can use to determine the origination of the phone call and who actually made the phone call. So that's going to be the first priority, to legitimate the actual call itself, to confirm or deny that it was a call that was made from someone who has intentions on doing harm or causing problems for Smollett and his family. It's very complicated, but it can be done. It may take some time to get it.
Yeah, and presumably they'd be working on that now, I would hope. Agent Golden, that's the thing that kind of was troubling me when I heard about this news this morning, is that call needs to be authenticated, right, to show that it is what the family is saying that it is. And what kind of gives me a little bit of pause is that spectacle that Jussie Smollett made in the courtroom on his way out with the deputies. We all heard him, the world heard him loud and clear, and then now his family, they claim, are receiving calls like the one that we're unable to play because it is so graphic and disturbing. Daryl Cohen, what do you think about this? Does this give you any pause, thinking about what he said on the way out of the courtroom, and now here comes the phone call that seems to corroborate what his concern was?
Well, Julie, this all seems to be so much like Shakespeare, much ado about nothing, but not really. It tells me that if you do the crime, you have to serve the time. And all of us who have been in the criminal defense system for years understand that. Yes, he needs to be protected if this phone call is authenticated, or if they have reason to believe that he is in some sort of danger, then clearly he needs to be protected. But should he be released based upon his allegations that he was found guilty of? In my view, no. He did something that exacerbated exactly what we don't need in this country. We don't need any more racial problems for no absolute reason. So let him do his time and protect him if necessary, but let it be.
Andrew Mishlabby, tell me what you think about this. Does this raise any red flags to you?
Well, Jussie Smollett is a unique case. It's obviously captured the nation's interest, so it's hard to compare it to other cases. And yet at the same time, everyone who goes into jail is afraid of violence in jail. Everyone who goes into jail is afraid of COVID in jail. These kind of complaints are things that jailers and judges hear every day. So I agree with Mr. Cohen that I would be shocked if he is released from jail because of this. He will be placed in protective custody of some sort, and that's not a lot of fun. That means that he's going to be essentially in solitary confinement where nobody can get to him. I would be extremely surprised if he was even moved to a different facility, but he'll be watched very carefully inside the facility he's in.
Right. You know, and as far as what protective custody, you know, what it looks like, what it involves, Agent Golden, can you kind of give us an idea of what that experience is like? I know Andrew touched on it a little bit for us, but if anybody's wondering, what exactly is it like for someone like Jussie Smollett, based on what we know from the Cook County Sheriff's Department? What, if anything, would you add to that, please?
First of all, he's placed in the side of the jail where there's the optimum level of security. Nobody gets in or out of that area without being accounted for and justifying why they come in. And he'll probably be on a 24-hour video surveillance. And he'll probably have a jailer coming by and checking him every 30 minutes to make sure that he's okay and he hasn't done anything to himself or nobody has gotten to him. He'll probably be allowed 1 hour out of his jail cell to shower and possibly take a walk by himself, but he'll be walking with nobody else in the area where he is. But 23 hours out of the day, he's going to be locked down with no access to anything except the normal things you have to be able to do: use a bathroom, get a drink of water, get your 3 meals every day, and to take a shower once a day. So it's the ultimate level of solitary confinement, and it's not intended to harm him. It is intended to keep him safe.
Thank you, Agent Golden. Let's take a look back at those outbursts that Jussie Smollett made when he was in court for his sentencing last week.
No, I would just like to say to Your Honor that I am not suicidal. That's what I would like to say.
Okay.
I am not suicidal.
Okay.
I am not suicidal. I am innocent, and I am not suicidal. If I did this, then it means that I stuck my fist in the fears of Black Americans in this country for over 400 years and the fears of the LGBTQ community. Your Honor, I respect you and I respect the jury, but I did not do this, and I am not suicidal. And if anything happens to me when I go in there, I did not do it to myself, and you must all know that. I respect you, Your Honor. I respect your decision. Jail time. I am not suicidal.
Okay.
I am not suicidal.
Stop laughing about Black.
I am not suicidal, and I am innocent. I could have said that I was guilty a long time ago.
Ooh, what'd you think of that? I want to ask my guests on the program what they thought of that outburst there. Daryl Cohen, let me begin with you. Your thoughts on it, please.
Perhaps Oscar-winning or clearly Emmy-winning performance. His performance was exactly what it was when he made the allegations that he was found guilty of being a liar, guilty. I'm not impressed. I'm just not impressed. Maybe he's auditioning for a part from when he is no longer incarcerated.
Right.
You may get it.
Oh, go ahead, please, Daryl.
No, I said he may get that part.
He may get it. Yeah, he may get it.
I don't know who the producer, the director is, but go for it. He's quite an actor.
Yeah, he is
He's
quite
a SAG
an actor.
member.
I found it to be quite a spectacle, and I have to say, he had to have known of that possibility. He has who I understand to be some of the finest lawyers in Chicago. We're familiar at Court TV with one of them, Tamara Walker. She's been on Court TV before. She's outstanding. And these lawyers would have to advise him of all the possibilities. Andrew, let me have you speak to this, if you would, please. When you have a client going into sentencing like this, share with us how you explain to them all the things that might happen on that day, depending on what the judge does.
Well, I always advise my clients they might go into custody on that day. Sometimes the judge sets a different day for a person to report. If my clients are guilty and that's obvious, I advise my clients that they need to find someplace in their hearts where they have some remorse and contrition, and they ought to express that. So Jussie Smollett did exactly the opposite of that. He proclaimed his innocence, which is his right. At least he tempered it by expressing respect for the judge and the jury. But I found it to be, as Mr. Cohen did, a performance.
Right. Agent Golden, share with us your thoughts. Seeing that, on Friday when he was sentenced, what did you think, please?
Well, I just had a conversation with my grandson about consequences. When you're a man and you do something wrong and you get caught, you have to be willing to face the consequences of your actions. If that's the case, you're not a man, you're a child. Don't whine about things, especially when you know what you did is wrong. You accept the consequences. I can tell you that out of the many trials I've sat through with defendants that I knew without a shadow of a doubt were guilty, when the judges made their decisions, or the jury made their decision, the judge handed down the sentence, not one of them stood and did what Mr. Smollett did. They faced the consequences, accepted the responsibility, and went to jail without whining and crying. You got to grow up, you got to be a man, and you got to accept the consequences of your actions. When you do wrong, you suffer the consequences.
Exactly. A great lesson your grandson is being taught. Absolutely. And with Jussie Smollett, go ahead, Daryl. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was just going to say, had he gone while sentencing, not admitting what he did was wrong, but saying, I'm sorry this happened. I feel so much remorse, and I do respect the court. I think everything might have gone a lot more smoothly for him. That's all.
Right. And in part of what he said something to the effect like, I respect the jury's decision, I respect your honor, but then he just could not help himself, could he? He just had to keep going and had to be loud and just draw so much attention to himself when this all was about attention. That's what it was all about, you know, whether it was for more fame or to try to become more powerful in Hollywood or who knows. But it's like, boy, oh boy. You know, you can advise the client all day, right, Andrew? You can advise them and advise them and advise them, but I'm sure those attorneys had to be cringing at the impression that he left upon the nation on Friday.
I'm sure that they were grateful for his sake that he made the majority of those statements after the judge pronounced sentence.
Yeah.
If you act out like that before the judge announces his sentence, it invariably leads to a much harsher sentence.
Sure. You know, someone asked me on Twitter, this is a good one to follow up with you, Andrew. Someone said, what about contempt? Could the judge have held him in contempt?
That would be pretty unusual. I think at that point, the judge just wants to get him out of the courtroom.
Right. Send him off to the jail. Then he's the jail's problem. But here it just seems like he won't stop. And I think with this call the family is saying they received, I mean, you certainly hope it's not true. You know, it's very, very disturbing, upsetting. But I think had there not been that performance before, it kind of set the table for it, I guess, is what I'm thinking. The performance on Friday in the courtroom kind of, you know, and now everyone, you know, in his family who is very strongly advocating. They gave that press conference after the sentencing. Many of you might have seen it at home, where they were very angry that he was sent to the Cook County Jail. And so they're obviously doing everything they can to make sure that he is safe there, understandably so. And we'll see if he's let out. That petition's hanging in the balance, and we'll keep an eye if we hear anything from the court or if law enforcement authenticates that call. Daryl Cohen, Andrew Mishlabby, Agent Ted Golden, thank you all so much. Before we head to break, I want to share with you something special. This is a special programming note. Tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, you can see an exclusive interview. Michael Ayala is going to be interviewing Jussie Smollett's attorney, Tamara Walker. We were just talking about Tamara. She's fantastic. She's been on Court TV before. Michael's going to sit down with her and talk all about Jussie Smollett's case. So maybe we'll get some more insight from her tonight. But that's 7 p.m. Eastern Time right here on Court TV. Coming up after the break, we'll get you caught up on your other headlines making news around the country. Your legal briefs are next.
Call our helpline now.
Good afternoon. I'm legal correspondent Julia Janae with your legal briefs. We're tracking stories across the country today. Here are the ones making news this afternoon. Police in our nation's capital say that this morning they arrested the man they believe was attacking homeless people in New York and D.C. These images were released by authorities in both cities over the weekend. The man, whose identity hasn't yet been released, is accused of stalking people who were sleeping in the street, killing 2 and wounding 3 others. Investigators said little is known about the gunman's motive. And a California jury will now hear the case against ex-boyfriend of Elizabeth Holmes, the Theranos founder. Sunny Balwani was second in command at the embattled blood testing company. His trial is coming 2 months after Holmes was convicted of 4 of 11 fraud charges against her for lying to investors, doctors, and patients. She took the stand during her trial and accused Balwani of abuse. He denies both of those and has pleaded not guilty. His trial is being held in the same federal courtroom. No cameras are permitted inside. And new documents filed in the Doomsday Couple case reveal that Chad Daybell wants prosecutors disqualified from his case, but he doesn't want the public to see the details. Chad Daybell's defense asked the court to seal their motions, one of those aimed at ousting Idaho prosecuting attorney Rob Wood. These filings are coming ahead of a hearing that's scheduled for this week on Friday. Daybell and his wife, Lori Vallow, face murder charges in the death of her 2 children. Chad is set to go on trial next year, January 9th. Lori hasn't been deemed yet competent to stand trial. We know, Julie, that could change at any moment if she's evaluated and deemed competent. Yes, it could, Julia. So let's talk a little more about Chad, please. So he's saying he wants Prosecutor Rob Wood off the case, but doesn't want anyone in the world to know why.
They filed a motion to seal, and the judge has granted that motion to seal, and listed on that motion is the things that he is going to file, that he wants sealed. So we can't see the details, can't see their arguments as to why they want the prosecutor disqualified and some things disclosed that it seems they don't think they received, but we won't be able to tell unless the judge unseals it exactly what those details are.
Oh boy, so we really don't know what the grounds are, huh?
Don't know unless we are given that information directly from the attorney.
Boy, oh boy, something just doesn't sound right about that.
A lot of things sealed in this case are asked to be sealed, but it's a strange part of it.
Right, yeah, this is a case where a lot doesn't seem right with it. Julia Janae, thank you so much for all of that. Let's dig in a little more on this news about Chad Daybell. Let me bring in my guests to weigh in, see if they think it sounds a little funny. We have with us criminal defense attorney Daryl Cohen. We have retired DEA Special Agent Ted Golden and criminal defense attorney Andrew Mishlabby all standing by. And Daryl, I want to go to you on this one because we have a couple minutes and I know we have to say goodbye to you at 2 o'clock. Tell me, what's jumping out at you when you hear about this request from Chad Daybell?
Nothing. Chad Daybell has been a wackadoodle, a kook the entire time. Everything that he's charged with, everything that he's done leads up to this. He is just grasping at straws, or maybe he's gone down for the 3rd time, still got a finger up, maybe a hand, but that's about it. This is nothing. This is just theatrics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think, Andrew? Do you think there could be any merit to this, or is this just another grab for some attention?
I agree with Mr. Cohen. This is theatrics. This is grasping. I'm surprised that the judge even granted the initial request to keep the documents sealed, except perhaps there was so much nonsense in it, he thought that even that shouldn't be public. But, you know, the presumption is that courts need to be public and court records are public.
Mm-hmm, right. And quickly, Agent Golden, you know, if Rob Wood, if he were to be removed for some reason off of the case, there's still going to be another prosecutor pursuing the death penalty, right?
Yes, ma'am. It sounds like you say, he's pulling at straws. I've had an occasion or two to have defense attorneys removed from cases that I've had. And it's got to be fairly consistent and factual for a judge to do that.
Agent Golden, thank you. All right, we have to say goodbye to Daryl Cohen. Daryl, thanks for coming on the show today. We'll see you soon. Agent Golden and attorney Andrew Mishlabby are going to stay with me as we head into our next hour. We want you to do the same. Thank you for watching Court TV Live on this Tuesday afternoon. We are your front row seat to justice.
or 9.
Good Tuesday afternoon to you. Welcome to Court TV Live. I'm your midday host, Julie Grant. We're following two major trials for you happening this afternoon in Ohio. Former ICU Dr. William Husel is on trial accused of murdering 14 of his patients after giving them lethal doses of the opioid fentanyl, which the doctor claims was simply provided as comfort care for those critically ill patients. We'll keep you updated on the trial throughout the day. And by the way, if you want to watch it all, it is streaming for you live on our website. Just head over to courttv.com. We have our cameras also in Memphis, Tennessee today. Court's on a lunch break right now. In this case, this is day one today of Tennessee versus Billy Ray Turner. So this defendant is being accused of murdering this man, NBA star Lorenzen Wright. He was killed back in 2010 after Wright's wife, her name is Shara Wright, allegedly solicited the defendant to carry out the shooting. We want to turn now to Court TV's Chanley Painter, who's standing by live for us in Memphis with the very latest. Chanley, good afternoon. If you would hit the highlights, please, from the opening statements.
Hey, good afternoon, Julie. Well, what a morning it was inside the courtroom just right behind me here, Division 7. That's Judge Lee Coffey's courtroom where opening statements took place. First, the prosecution, Paul Hagerman, really had these jurors leaning in almost to his every word as he painted a picture of a brutal murder in 2010 of Lorenzen Wright, and he was speaking almost like a whisper. So it was very difficult to hear him as he delivered his opening statement, which made the jury even lean in more, right, as they wanted to take in what he was saying. He held the alleged murder weapon in front of the jury box, showed them that, and he had a 911 call that was played that really captured the attention because those were some of the final words that Lorenzen Wright spoke before his brutal murder. It may not have come across exactly how the prosecutors wanted as the audio, but it was powerful, especially for the family in the gallery. Let's listen.
July 18th, turning into July 19th. It's just after midnight. It's actually 12:12 a.m. 12 minutes after midnight. The call is to Germantown 911. You'll hear two male voices. The first male voice is the caller, Lorenzen Wright. The second male voice is the killer. And then you'll hear gunshot after gunshot after gunshot.
Dartmouth 911, where's your emergency? Hello? 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 I have nothing but gunshot.
That's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like to kill a man. That's what it sounds like to kill Lorenzen Wright.
After that phone call was made, of course, the family of Lorenzen Wright in the gallery embraced each other. His sisters started crying. In fact, one of his sisters actually left the courtroom during opening statements as well. But that was a key moment for the prosecution because if the authorities had investigated that 911 call, Julie, they possibly could have gathered a lot more physical evidence at the crime scene. Of course, found Lorenzen Wright's body a lot sooner. Now, the defense opening statement had a different sort of tone. The defense attorney much more animated, but the story not quite as cohesive. But what was clear is that they're pointing the finger at Shara Wright's cousin, Jimmy Martin. Let's take a listen.
The state of Tennessee made a big old mistake. Now, a few minutes ago, Mr. Hagerman pointed out the mistake that Collierville police made. They made a hell of a mistake. They didn't report it. They didn't report this stuff. They didn't call anybody. But guess what the state of Tennessee did? That when this guy says, hey, you know what? I can figure out the murder for you before my sentencing. All right? I can figure out that murder for you. guess what they do? They give him a permanent get-out-of-jail-free card. Sign this. They signed a contract. Like you go in and buy a car, they signed a contract. No matter what you say, if it changes, if it weaves, if it bobs, there's nothing that we're going to do to you. So this unindicted co-conspirator is a farce. It's a lie.
Ultimately, Jimmy Martin, to the defense, is unreliable, had motive to lie, and of course, they also highlight any communications or messages between Shira Wright and the defendant, Billy Ray Turner, were misinterpreted, Julie.
Right, and Chandler, I remember you telling us yesterday in your reporting that Jimmy Martin is a convicted murderer.
He certainly is. He was convicted of second-degree murder for his girlfriend. Now, this was a first trial was had against him in 2009. That ended in a mistrial. He was out on bond for 3 years during the murder of Lorenzen Wright, by the way. He was retried in 2012 and convicted of second-degree murder. He's doing a sentence of 20 years behind bars, and of course the defense is going to be all over that and impeaching his credibility, his criminal history, and of course, you know, this convicted murderer testifying to try to convict another murderer here. So we expect the defense to be all over it.
Yeah, they sure will be, Chanley. Tell me, please, I know you mentioned some family in the courtroom. We've seen Lorenzen Wright's mother be very vocal in court before, be very upset in court. Have you seen her yet today?
I have seen her, Julie. She's actually not inside the courtroom yet. She's sitting in a side hallway with a couple of deputies, Deborah Marion. We expect that she's probably one of the first witnesses for the prosecution, so she's not inside the courtroom just yet. But she is here, and you're right, very vocal out front in the media ever since she reported. She was the one that reported her son, Lorenzen Wright, missing, not his ex-wife or friends or other family. She was the one, so she's super important to this prosecution's case. But inside the courtroom, we have the brother of Lorenzen Wright, two of his sisters, and uncle, and that's who we see inside the courtroom, emotional, and all were in line. And right behind me, there's a line of media and family and people to enter the courtroom first thing this morning. They go through the metal detectors like everyone else, sit inside the courtroom. And it's also interesting inside to point out that the defendant, unlike many other cases that we cover here at Court TV, we usually see the defendant sitting next to his attorneys at the same table, counsel table. Inside this courtroom, Billy Ray Turner actually sits behind his attorneys, behind counsel table, and that's something that's standard for this setup and arrangement in this courtroom so that the defendant is farther away from the prosecutors. It's sort of kind of a safety issue, but it keeps kind of defendants at bay, but still close enough to their own lawyers to communicate and be a part of their defense, of course.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Many people were wondering about that. We can see him sitting back there wearing that olive green mask. Chanley, tell me about the jury. You watched as jury selection was happening yesterday. Now that they're seated today, what do we know about the jury in terms of who's on there, the makeup, all of that, please?
Right, this jury arrived first thing this morning, Julie, carrying backpacks and suitcases, entering the back door of this courthouse and courtroom because they will be sequestered. But here's what they appear to look like. Of course, we have a jury of 12 with 3 alternates. We don't know who the alternates are, but there are 8 women, 7 men. Of the women, 5 appear to be black, 3 appear to be white. Of the men, 3 appear to be black, 4 appear to be white. Here are some of just the rules of sequestration here in Shelby County, Tennessee. These jurors have no cell phones during this entire process that they are sitting as a juror and sequestered. They will get their own hotel room, no TV, by the way. The jurors can make 1 phone call, however, each night through a phone provided by the sheriff's office, Julie, and they can watch TV shows upon request in a hospitality suite wherever they are being housed. They can also bring non-criminal related reading material if they want to during this time. So that's another reason why this trial may extend into the weekends. We may be here on Saturday and Sunday because this jury is sequestered.
Right, and something that we're rarely seeing these days. So it's interesting to note that this one does have a sequestration Sequester Jury, and they'll be hard at work for many, many hours to come. Chanley Painter live for us there in Tennessee. Thank you so much for all of that. I want to bring in my guest now. We have with us standing by in Atlanta, Georgia, retired DEA Special Agent Ted Golden. He also served in Memphis, Tennessee as a police officer there. He trains at the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change in Atlanta and consults with DeKalb County, Georgia Juvenile Court. I'm surprised he has time to come on the show, but he does. He's giving his time to us as always. And I want to welcome on the program a new guest, criminal defense attorney Andrew Mishlabby, practices in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Great to have you on the show as well. So let's kind of talk about well, Chanley and I were just chatting with the Sequester Jury. We've had so many high-profile cases that Court TV has watched and covered this year, last year, and we did not have juries that were sequestered. And I remember having many conversations on the air about how, in this day and age, there's really a need for that when you have a trial that is very high profile, very public, lots of media coverage swirling around it. And this one is largely that, something that just rocked the town, somebody who was a hometown hero and a star, you know, across the country and beloved in the NBA. And the case went cold for so long. And now we've got this jury sequestered. Andrew, I'll start with you. You know, practically speaking, as a defense attorney, would you like a sequestered jury to be hearing this case if it were you defending Billy Ray Turner?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The world is in these little devices. And no matter what a judge says, don't look up the case, don't do your own research, don't be going on the internet and reading the newspapers about this case. Jurors will do that. And they'll do it especially when they're told not to, I think. So if I have a high profile, even a low profile case, I want the cell phones taken away from the jurors. I don't want them reading law books. I don't want them visiting the scene on their own. I think sequestration, especially in a high profile or very important case, is a great thing.
I'm in agreement with you there. Ted Golden, can I ask you a little bit about security when it comes to a sequestered jury, especially in a case where it's a very high-profile case and folks in the media are dying to get in touch with the jury at the end of the case and what that looks like from a law enforcement standpoint. I'm curious if you ever had anything like that when you served on the police force in Memphis, if you ever had any involvement in making sure the jury got to and from the courthouse safely.
Some witnesses before, but I can tell you that the most complicated part about it is dealing with the accommodations and making sure the floor, and sometimes even the entire hotel, is controlled access. You just can't get into those folks. They've got everything battened down. The television is shut down. Televisions are gone. There's no trafficking amongst these folk. People aren't allowed to talk with them or to eat with them or to have a conversation with them. They're actually secluded from the world, more or less.
Right. Yeah. It's an interesting process, and it is good to see that it's happening, because sometimes courts might be deterred by things like, you know, the cost, the work, the effort. Just as you said, there's so many things that go into it. But to make sure a jury is free from any outside influence, sequestration is certainly the way to go. Agent Ted Golden, attorney Andrew Mishlabby, thank you both kindly. You're going to stay with us. We want you to do the same. We're going to squeeze in a break. Coming up, we're going to take a closer look at that hometown hero, Lorenzen Wright, the victim on this case. His murder stunned Memphis. More details on the life that he lived when we come back.
Credit Karma. Download the app today.
What did he do that made you think? Because he would talk to you like it's kind of like when you become a king, but you still got the commoner's touch. He had the commoner's touch.
How did he show that?
He showed it because he always spoke to everybody. He never acted like he was more than what he was. He always acted humble. He always was, hey, what's up? You know what I'm saying? He's like, oh, I'm Lorenzen, I got my head up. He was like, man, how you doing, man? What's going on with you?
That was a Memphis Grizzlies fan outside of a game this weekend remembering NBA star Lorenzen Wright. The Memphis-born basketball player was fatally shot back in 2010 when his wife, Shara Wright, allegedly convinced her friend and local church deacon, yes, I said deacon, Billy Ray Turner, to commit the murder. That is the allegation. The death, of course, shocked the Memphis community where Lorenzen Wright was known and loved. He was really known around the town as a local hero. Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter gives us a closer look at the life of Lorenzen Wright.
Lorenzen came home as a hometown hero. There was nobody more excited to be a Memphis Grizzly than Lorenzen Wright.
The memory of Lorenzen Wright is being rekindled with the trial of Billy Ray Turner, charged with his murder. It's been more than 10 years since Wright's death, but he is still remembered for his love of the game and the city he grew up in.
If you was an up-and-coming basketball player or a high school student and wanted to do something more with your life with athleticism, Lorenzen was the person to look up to. And he put Memphis on his back. He represented Memphis to the fullest.
Lorenzen gave everything that he could.
Ronald Tillery covered the Grizzlies for the Memphis Commercial Appeal for 17 seasons.
And, he was unhappy when they lost. He didn't come here on a 10-day contract. He wasn't like a ceremonial, let's bring back the hometown kid. He was in his prime.
Wright was such a fan favorite, he was featured in this commercial for season tickets. He won them over with his humor and his humility.
I just remember him always being even though he was wealthy, he was always nice, very kind, cared about the community, always cared about Memphis. He always came home to Memphis and cared about Memphis.
Wright played 13 seasons with the NBA. He retired after finishing his career in 2009 with the Cleveland Cavaliers. He returned to Memphis often and was visiting friends and family when he disappeared.
Search for a missing former NBA star has come to a tragic end. Police found a male body in a wooded area in Memphis, Tennessee yesterday, and they say it is Lorenzen Wright.
It broke my heart, just like it broke everybody else's heart.
Hundreds of fans, friends, and family members attended his funeral to pay tribute to a native son. But the brutality of Wright's murder would eventually be eclipsed years later by the shocking betrayal of his ex-wife and the mother of his 6 children. Shara Wright pleaded guilty to facilitation of murder in connection with his slaying and was sentenced to 30 years in prison. She was indicted along with Billy Ray Turner. He was a deacon at the church they attended, but Turner maintains his innocence.
What I remember the most is the thing about his wife. That was tragic. You know what I'm saying? To be betrayed like that with love. Love is a difficult thing. You know what I'm saying? Love is like a mystery. You never know how it's going to turn out.
Yeah, the ultimate betrayal there with her being his spouse. That was Chanley Painter reporting for us. The jury is still on their break, but should be back in about 10 minutes. You're not going to miss a moment of it. No witnesses called yet, so the jury has yet to hear evidence. All they've heard are the opening statements, which are technically not evidence, but they can be very persuasive, as we know. Let me bring in my guest for some analysis now. Standing by in Atlanta, Georgia, retired DEA Special Agent Ted Golden, and in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, criminal defense attorney Andrew Mishlabby. Andrew, I'd like to ask you about how the star factor weighs in or doesn't weigh in this case. When you think about criminal defense work and you think about a victim on a case, there's always the concern that the jury might sympathize with the victim because of the allegations and the evidence that the state's presenting. But then when you have a victim who's a superstar, beloved by everybody in town on a personal level, not just for his professional success, I feel like it makes it even harder. Your thoughts, please.
Well, I completely agree with you. I'm a big believer that trials are not arguments, trials are not logical chess matches, trials are storytelling contests. And when you have characters in a story that are lovable, respected, beloved people, that has an impact. Nonverbal things have an impact. Of course, Lorenzen Wright was a successful, beloved person in Memphis, and that is hugely important in this case, as are all the other aspects of this story. He was betrayed by his wife. There are other men involved that may or may not have been a part of this, and of course, that's what the whole case is about. All these things, all of the background, the human factor, to me, is extremely important.
Right, Andrew. No, it is. Ted Golden, would you talk to us, please, about how that affects law enforcement? Because I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think law enforcement in America really have the toughest job in the world. And when I see what's going on day to day, it's always hard. There's always pressure. There's always criticism. It can be very thankless, and a lot of the good work goes unacknowledged. And then when you have a case like this one where maybe there's added public pressure because the victim's so beloved, because the victim's an NBA star, how tough is that for officers who are trying to crack the case when it's going cold?
Well, you know, the pressure is always on when you have a case that hasn't been solved. And it puts you in a position of having to do the unthinkable or the undoable, because you got to pull the rabbit out of the hat. And when you walk through and you backtrack and you try to figure out, what did I miss? There's something here that's got to give me the lead that I need. It makes it more of a life journey for the guy doing the investigation. You take it home with you. You go to church. It goes to church with you. It goes to your son's basketball game with you. It's with you all the time, because your mind is constantly working, and you spend so much time delving through that information that it becomes your life. And many times, a lot of guys go through a high level of stress because of it, and it's anxiety that really creates an issue many times in their marriages and their personal lives.
Oh, I'm sure. You know, here it'll be really interesting to see what this witness, Jimmy Martin, has to say, because it seems like this guy, and Andrew, I'll go to you on this one next, please. Jimmy Martin's the state's star witness. He's also a co-conspirator in all this. So right there, he's got, you know, as we say in the law, the unclean hands, right? So he's also said to be involved, but is helpful to the state's case, so he's a witness. He's also got a separate case that landed him in the slammer for a long time, because he was convicted of second-degree murder, the killing of one of his girlfriends. Out on bond at the time that Lorenzen Wright was killed. So I feel like there's some room there for the defense to explore with him. Tell me, how would you approach it if you were defense counsel on this case, representing Billy Ray Turner, and you know that this witness is coming up who is a criminal himself, was involved in some way? You're going to have some things to go after. How do you do that? What does that look like, please?
Well, I have to establish a motive for Jimmy to lie. And I think defense counsel hinted at that. He got to it. I don't think he brought it home, but he said that Jimmy came out with this story. He offered to help police solve the Wright murder case while he was awaiting sentencing on the murder case that he's now doing a 20-year stint on. So he was hoping to get a lighter sentence by being seen as a guy who would help the cops. Personally, I don't think that's a really strong argument, but it really depends how well the defense attorney can tell that story, tie it together, and especially tie it together with Shara Wright, because he has to impeach not only Jimmy, but also Shara.
Right. Andrew, a quick follow-up for you, please. If you had to venture an educated guess, do you think we're going to see Shara Wright taking the stand and testifying on behalf of the state in this one?
Boy, that's pure speculation. If I was the prosecutor, I would introduce maybe as little evidence as possible, because there's less for the defense to attack. But then, of course, I think prosecutors think if I don't do something, that's a worse mistake. So, yeah, I think we'll see her.
I do too. I do too, Andrew. I really think so, especially because Jimmy Martin might be kind of a questionable witness. I feel like he's a little bit of a wild card And so I think it kind of completes the story. With 3 co-defendants, it can be very tricky, and vetting who did what can be tricky. Ted Golden, this is a great place to tap into your expertise. You know, when you're trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together, what are some of the things that you do to get to the truth and to who did what? Because I would think when you have people who, you know, have incentive to lie, or may have a criminal history. We know Billy Ray Turner has a criminal history, one of assaultive behavior, deceptive behavior in his past. There was some cocaine selling as well. He's done quite a bit. Then became a deacon too, so there's that. What are some of the things you do to sort it all out?
Well, you have to go back to the beginning of when the relationship started and document that on paper so that you have information that the prosecutor can use to explain the relationship, to explain the circumstances, and then you use the facts of the case to lead you to the conclusion that these people are telling the truth. Many times people forget that people perceive things differently, but when they're doing things wrong, a lot of times, they know exactly what they did and how it was done, and they really support each other in how things occurred. So the facts are there. The prosecutor will bring out all the negative things in this guy's background he can, but the one thing he's going to make sure he hits home is the facts surrounding the homicide and how it occurred and who did what, and the two witnesses will hopefully complement each other as they explain what happened.
Right. Ted Golden, Andrew Mishlabby, great to have you both on the show today. Can't wait to watch some more with you and with all of you at home. We're going to squeeze in a break so we don't miss anything. The jury's on their lunch break. They were said to be back to hear more at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. So we're going to get this break in. See you on the other side. This is Court TV Live, your front row seat to justice.
our helpline now.
Thank you for being with us here on Court TV Live, your front row seat to justice. I'm Julie Grant, your midday host. Any moment, the jury is going to be back in Tennessee to hear more of the case against Billy Ray Turner. So before we go in there, just want to give you a little programming note. Today, if you want to see the trial of Dr. William Husel, we've got it streaming for you live on courttv.com. You can go there at any point. You can watch the case. He is the doctor who's accused of 14 murders, 14 victims who are his patients. The state says it was murder. His defense team says he was showing them mercy by providing them comfort care in their final days. So if you're curious what's going on with that case, we've got it for you. You won't miss a thing. Just go to courttv.com. Right here, we're going to be showing you this brand new trial just starting today in Memphis, Tennessee. So the defendant is a deacon with a criminal past who is said to have been romantically involved with another co-defendant. Her case has been disposed of. She pleaded to helping to facilitate the murder of her husband. Now, her husband is a famous NBA star, Lorenzen Wright. So he was very much a hometown hero, beloved in the community. His death shocked everyone in Memphis, and the case went cold for many years till finally a break in the case, and police sorted things out and came to the investigatory conclusion that there were 3 people responsible. They concluded that Shara Wright was responsible for facilitating the killing, essentially hiring a hitman to carry it out. And they say that the hitman is the man who's on trial right now, Billy Ray Turner. He's alleged to be the person who shot Lorenzen Wright in the head multiple times back in 2010. And there's also said to be another person who was somewhat involved in the planning process. His name is Jimmy Martin. He is cousins with Shara Wright, the victim's wife. This is him. You can see there he's booked in the prison system for the murder of one of his girlfriends. But he was out on bond at the time that Lorenzen Wright was killed. So that's something very important to note for this defense team when they cross-examine him. He's going to be the big star for the state's case. And if I had to bet, I would bet that they're going to call Shara Wright too, even though she's in prison for a long, long time for this crime. She may have some information to offer that may lead to a conviction of the man who's said to be her co-defendant, someone who did some gardening work around their house, someone who was a deacon, so a spiritual leader for her. And then the prosecutor says that he was also her romantic interest here. So we are waiting for court to begin. We saw the judge heading up toward the bench. The jury's not back in the box yet. It gives me a couple of minutes to bring in my guests on the program. We have with us retired DEA Special Agent Ted Golden and criminal defense attorney Andrew Mishlabby. Okay, so getting ready to hear from the first witnesses in this case. We heard the opens earlier today. Given what we know so far, who do you both think has the stronger case? And I realize the defense doesn't have any burden. I know they don't have to put on a shred of evidence, but sometimes the state doesn't always have a great case. And sometimes we go into these things and think, boy, oh boy, the defense really has a good set of facts to work with. Andrew, tell me your assessment based on just the facts delivered in the opens. Who would you say has the better case as we head into the witness testimony?
Well, Julie, I think juries, for the most part, make up their mind. Let's say they're 80% convinced after they hear the opening statement, and then they view the trial in the lens that's already been formed, unless something radical happens to change their preconception. So I think this jury already has a sense of which way they are leaning and how they are going to view the case. And I think it's through the eyes of the prosecution at this point.
I'm with you, Andrew. I think the state delivered a pretty strong open, albeit a quiet open. That was his style, just to be kind of quiet. And we heard from Chanley that didn't deter the jury at all, that they were leaning forward and seemed to be listening more intently. So, hey, whatever works. Every attorney has their own style. They're not all like, Saul Goodman on Breaking Bad. But, it is what it is. And defense counsel got up there very likable, very engaging, very animated, but didn't have the greatest set of facts. Ted Golden, tell me, we know that the state is going to try to use this cousin, Jimmy Martin, as the person who places the murder weapon in the hands of the defendant and in the hands of his co-conspirator, Shara Wright. the gun that was used to shoot Lorenzen Wright in the head multiple times. How key to the case is that, in your view, please?
Well, you know, many times informants, as he's going to be called, they know more than most folk, and they pay attention to a lot more, especially when they benefit from the issue itself, having happened in his presence. So they've documented everything they need to talk about with him, and he's given them information that they were able to verify. So they'll use him as a source, but then they'll turn around and use another alternative way of confirming what he said happened. And even though their credibility is questioned many times, you use them in a way that's going to be beneficial to the case and make sure that people understand that we know he's a bad guy, but he was there when it happened.
Right. Agent Golden, Andrew Mishlabby, I thank you both for all your commentary this afternoon. We can see that the jury is seated in the box now. Let's go in live and listen to His Honor.
Change splints. Could not write that up splints.
All right, you can see His Honor smiling there at the members of the jury. We just got some big information in from our field producer, Emanuela Grinberg, who's in the courtroom. The first witness is going to be the victim's mother. Am I right? The victim's mother, Deborah Marion is her name. So Lorenzen Wright's mother, Deborah Marion. First witness for the state. We saw her very upset in court in some past video clips we've shown you. A mother who lost her superstar son far too soon. This will likely be extremely impactful on this jury. In trial advocacy, we always say primacy and recency is what you remember. What's first, what's last. She is the first witness up. I believe she's walking up to the witness stand now. Let's see if we can listen. Okay, we're being told it's going to be a couple minutes. We're going to squeeze in a break. You won't miss a moment of the victim's mother's testimony next here on Court TV Live.
Call now.
Thank you for being with us here on Court TV Live. Let's go into the courtroom together in Tennessee. This is day number 1 of the state versus defendant Billy Ray Turner. He's accused of murdering NBA star Lorenzen Wright. He was 34 years old at the time he was killed. The case went cold. Now the state has called his mother, Deborah Marion, as their first witness. Let's watch.
Okay. Tell us your name, please.
Deborah Marion.
And can you spell your name for the court reporter and for the jury?
It's Deborahmarion.
And do you know why you're here today?
Yes.
Are you here for your son?
Yes.
Tell us your son's name.
Lorenzen Wright.
Miss Marion, tell us a little bit about your son. Where did you grow up?
Oxford, Mississippi.
Are you living down there in Oxford?
Yes. He was a good kid all the time. He never crawled on his knees. He crawled on a hand and a toe. And then he finally just started walking. He never crawled. Never.
Was he a big kid?
He was 8 pounds when he was born.
He grew up bigger, didn't he?
Yes, sir. Huge.
We've heard that he played basketball, is that right?
Mm-hmm. He loved it.
Where did he play in high school?
Lafayette High School in Booker T. Washington here.
From high school, where did you go?
University of Memphis.
You played for Memphis?
Yes.
He did real good.
Yes, he did.
Did he play basketball after that?
Yes, he went to the NBA. Before it was time to graduate, I told him, nope, you can't go to the NBA. Well, you got to go to get your degree. And he said, Mama, where am I going to get $1 million with a degree from a job? And y'all know I thought about 10 minutes, and I said, when you say you leaving? Okay. I'm serious, because I couldn't give him no answer.
You lost that argument quick.
Yes, I did.
Was he drafted in the NBA?
Oh, yes, 7th in first round.
7th in the first round?
Yes, sir. And he was ready for second. He was like, if I go second, my mama's still going to be good. Okay. But when they called his name, but I read the guy's lips, said, where's Lorenzen Wright's table? I'm like, okay, we are.
You mean it's going to say?
Yes, don't nothing come out like that, Lorenzen Wright.
Were you there at the draft when he got drafted?
Yes, I was, sitting right there. First person he kissed, when he got up.
What team did he go to?
LA Clippers. Yes.
He went to a few teams in his career, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Where all did he play?
Atlanta, Cleveland Cavaliers, Memphis Grizzlies, Sacramento. He played 1 year there. It was 6 teams altogether. I can't think of all of them.
And I think you told me before who his favorite teammate was.
Yes.
Who was that?
On his Malik, before Malik got killed.
Okay. Yeah, they had Malik. What was Malik's last name? Well, it doesn't matter. Where did he play with Malik?
Clippers.
Clippers. And then after Malik, he went to Cleveland?
Yes. No, not. He came home.
He came home to
Yes.
Texas. He finished his career here at the Grizzlies?
No, he went to Atlanta, or vice versa. I had this stroke, and this throw me off. But I know.
6 different teams.
Yes, sir.
A long NBA career.
Yes.
Did he make a lot of money?
Yes, he did.
He had a wife?
Yes, he did.
What was his wife's name?
Cheryl Robinson.
Do you know where he met her?
Basketball game.
Here in Memphis?
Yes, he played AAU ball. Even though he was living in Mississippi, he played AAU ball in Memphis.
How long were they married for, do you know?
13 years.
Did they have any children?
6.
What are the names of the children?
Starting with the oldest, Lorenzen Von Gunyon Jr. Now listen to all these names. Lorenzen and Cheryl all mixed together. Lorenzen Kevin Von Gunyon, Sophia. And then we got the twins, Lamar and Shamar, the twins. Then we got Sophia and Lawson.
So we have Lorenzen Wright Jr.
Right.
And does he have a nickname?
Snoop. Snoop.
And how old is he now?
Snoop about 25.
Lauren?
23.
And Lauren Sophia, is that right?
Yes.
The twins?
Yeah, they are 22 with my son.
And then 2 more after the twins?
Yes.
What were their names?
15, Lawson and Sophia, 15 and 13.
15. Through those years of being married to Shara and having the kids, did Lorenzen stay in touch with you?
Oh, yes. Yes, indeed. All the time.
It seems like you may have been his #1 fan. Did you stay his #1 fan for all
To
that?
the day he died, still is. Yes, sir.
And obviously we're here today about the day he died. Let me first show you this, though, before we talk about that. Look at this picture and tell me who's there.
That's my baby.
All right, that's your son, Lorenzen?
Uh-huh.
All right. When he was alive. Your Honor, I had that marked. It states first number exhibit.
Any objections? This comments from Mr. Perry?
No objection.
Ladies and gentlemen, without objection, will be admitted as exhibit number 1. Photograph described by Ms. Marion as the picture of her son, Lorenzen Wright, exhibit number 1. Ms. Marion, is there some Kleenex here? It looks like you have some paper towels in your hand. Yes. Take out the Kleenex, please, okay?
Yes.
Do you need some water, Ms. Marion?
Okay.
You need some water?
No, not right now.
Take all the Kleenex you need. You don't need to use those paper towels.
You go ahead and publish that, huh?
Yes, sir, you may.
That's Lorenzen, Memphis Grizzlies jersey, is that right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Do you like to remember him like that?
Yes, I want to remember him happy and celebrating with people after the game, win, lose, or draw. He just was good to be playing.
All these different teams that he played for, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Cleveland, everything. Did he make it a habit to come back to Memphis?
I got a pitch. I'm the pitcher lady in the family. Oh, yes, sir, he came home. Yes, sir. Matter of fact, the year when he got killed, he was at home for the 4th of July.
He got killed later on in July, we'll hear. But he'd been here on 4th of July.
Oh, yes.
Where was he living at the time he got killed?
Atlanta.
Had you been to Atlanta at all and seen him there?
Oh, yes.
And would the kids go to Atlanta?
Yes. They said their beds there.
Atlanta was his home at the time?
Yes.
Where was Sharon living at the time he was killed?
In Memphis.
In Memphis?
Yes.
Were they still married?
Yes. Yes, at that time, they were divorced February of that year.
They've been recently divorced, is that
right.
correct? And she lived in Memphis?
Yes.
Would the kids also stay in Memphis?
Yes.
So they spent some time in Memphis and some time in
Atlanta? Yes.
Do you remember the last time you saw your son alive?
Oh, I'll never forget it.
Where was that?
At my house. He came over to my house and he wrote a letter to Cheryl. And when he finished, he put it on top of my refrigerator. He said, well, I'm going to send her over here to get it. I was like, okay. About 20, 30 minutes later, he come back. I changed my mind. I'm going to give it to her myself. That was the last time I talked to him.
And about when was that?
That was like, what? That was right before the 4th. Right before the 4th, yes.
So it was on his earlier trip.
Yes, yes.
Did you even know that he was coming to town on the 17th or the 18th when he came to Memphis?
I knew he was coming due to the fact that my daughter was having a baby shower and he was going to attend her baby shower. Because this is the daughter that wasn't going to have kids. This was her second one, so he was going to be there.
So did you find out he was coming for that? Is that correct?
Yes, and I left messages and messages.
But did you see him at all when he came to that? So the last time you saw him was on his previous trip back to Memphis.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
When did you... Was there a point that you became concerned that something had happened to Lorenzen?
Oh, yes. When he did return my call. Because he always returned my call, mine and Laura's. That's why I waited to the end to call Laura, because I know if he hadn't called her back, it was something wasn't right, because he always thought me of it.
Lorenzen's daughter?
Yes.
So, what caused you to call Lorenzen?
Because I wanted to fuss at him for not making it to that baby shower, and we already talked about this. I'm like, I wish I would play the message I left. Like, where are you? Call me ASAP.
And you didn't hear from him?
Didn't hear from him. Nobody else had heard from him.
Did you talk to Lauren?
Oh, I don't want to talk to her last, because she the final draw. Because if he didn't answer her call or call her back, he's not on this earth.
And you didn't answer her call back?
Nope. Said she called me 5 times that day.
Did you talk to Shara?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she said the police better do their job. That's what she said.
Oh, doesn't your heart just break for her? That is Deborah Marion, Lorenzen Wright's mother, still clearly so distraught over what happened to her son. I want to say thank you to our guests, to Ted Golden and Andrew Mishlabby. My time is done here. Ashley Wilcott will be here next. Don't go anywhere. We're going to see more of this testimony right after the break.
Benefits review. Just call 800-279-5106. 800-279-5106.
Evil in the heart. It took an evil heart to do this. And I'm not talking about Billy Turner's heart. And literally 2 million reasons to want him dead.
Testimony is now underway in the trial for the accused gunman of the murdered NBA player Lorenzen Wright. Both sides finished opening statements earlier. We'll take a listen and discuss the story that each side is trying to sell to the jury. And new developments in the case of Jussie Smollett. His legal team is asking that the actor be released immediately because of a specific danger. We're going to talk about that. And is the jail rather doing its job, or is Jussie Smollett seeking special treatment? We'll also continue to follow the murder trial of former Dr. William Husel. He's accused of murdering 14 patients after giving them lethal dosages of fentanyl. Was it murder or mercy? Testimony is happening right now. We will check in on that courtroom later, or you can always watch it streaming live on CourtTV.com. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Judge Ashley Wilcott, always honored to be with you. We want to take you back into this courtroom. Tennessee versus Billy Ray Turner. Emotional testimony. You have not missed any of it. This is the mother of the victim, Lorenzen Wright. Deborah Marion is her name, under direct examination, talking about her son. Let's take you back into court.
All I can say is she said, the police need to be handling their business.
Did she tell you that he was missing?
No. Nope.
Did what she tell you made any sense at all?
None of it. Nothing makes sense.
Did it cause you to feel any certain way?
Like she knew something but wasn't saying. You know, when she would start a sentence and just stop.
Yes, sir. Normally would jail on a corpus witness, but getting into what a non-present co-defendant says, Your Honor, I don't think it's proper. It's improper hearsay.
Turner has been indicted for conspiracy.
I understand.
And those statements that are made in furtherance of a conspiracy by a party opponent is an exception to hearsay. So we'll overrule the objection for hearsay. Ladies and gentlemen, hearsay statements is a statement made out of court that has been offered in court for the truth of what is in that statement. Under Tennessee law, if there is it's an exception to the hearsay rule if these statements are made by a party opponent in furtherance of a conspiracy to commit a crime. Those are an exception to the hearsay, so the court is going to overrule that objection. And Mr. Hagerman, you may proceed.
Your Honor,
yes, sir.
Just for the foundation and for the record, in addition to the hearsay rule, just the general rule for confrontation and the confrontation clause, I think I have the ability should have the ability to cross-examine any statement that is an out-of-court statement. And that's, I just want to be clear for the record as well.
Understand. You may proceed, Mr. Hagerman.
Did what Sharon tell you cause you concern?
Oh, yes.
A little bit or a lot?
A lot. Because she always knew, like when he went out the house, she putting them blinds up. She seen, so for her to say she didn't know.
Did it cause you so much concern that you got in contact with the police?
After I talked to Lauren, I told Lauren, I said, Lauren, your daddy called you back, you heard from? She said, no, Grandma, I called him 5 times today. I said, well, Lauren, your grandma's going to be on the news tonight because she called the police because this is not right.
At this point, it'd be fair to say that he'd been missing for 2 or 3 days.
Oh, yeah.
And was your understanding that Sheriff Wright never called?
Nope, she never did. Nope.
You had to.
I had to.
Did she tell you that she was the last person to see him alive?
She said when they left, she said when we left, Snoop locked the door behind him. So that when they left, that's all, they who? Don't make sense.
The story makes sense. Did you talk to the police?
Did I? Oh, yes.
Did you report him missing?
Yes, I did.
And those days when he was missing, did they go on and on?
Yep.
Finally, were you alerted that he had been found?
And I knew it wasn't good because it was too long.
You knew it wasn't good because it took too long?
Yep.
How'd you find out?
Dennis, one of his police friends, Dennis McNeil. Dennis McNeil.
Where is it? Has some friends with police officers?
Dennis McNeil.
And what did he tell you?
They found him dead. And I told him I wanted his address. He just wanted me to know where I was so he could come pick me up.
Did you take part in planning a funeral for Lorenzen?
Yes.
Did y'all have a funeral for him?
Yes, we did at the FedEx Forum. He always told me, Mama, don't bury me in no black because I'm not a dark person. Don't y'all wear no black because I'm not a dark person. So he never said what color to wear, so I told him, wear white.
So y'all have a funeral that was in white?
Yes, sir.
A lot of people come to it?
Yes, sir.
Friends and family come to it?
Yes, indeed.
And obviously, some of these are legal requirements that I'm having to ask you.
Okay.
After you saw Lorenzen back there in July, you never saw him alive again, did you?
No, never.
Now, we do have a stipulation attended to the court.
Yes, sir.
If I can read it, mark it first for our wishes, and I can read it to the record.
Yes, sir. Any objections, Thomas and Mr. Perry?
No.
And for the record, this will be exhibit number 2. It's a stipulation of fact. Exhibit number 2. And ladies and gentlemen, I will give you this charge verbally. We'll also give it to you in writing at the end of the trial. A stipulation is an agreement. And all parties have agreed that certain matters are being stipulated as being factual in this case. In other words, the lawyer's not requiring that the state call a witness to say this is what this would be. They're stipulating that if that witness were called, that is what the witness testimony would be. And you will give the stipulation the same weight and consideration as you would give any other testimony that was testified in court under oath by a witness. You may proceed, Ms. Hagerman.
The parties in this matter, the state of Tennessee and the defendant, represented by counsels, have agreed to the following things. The victim in this case is Lorenzen Wright. He was a living person who is now deceased. The victim is the same person that autopsy 201000911 was performed upon. These are facts that are agreed to by the parties and may be accepted as true without the need for a witness or further proof. This is a stipulation made in all homicide cases so that family members of the victim do not have to view the autopsy pictures of the victim. So the parties stipulate to that is approved by the court. That's Exhibit 2.
Hagerman, thank you, sir. You may proceed, Ms. Hagerman.
Just a couple more questions, Ms. Marion. Were you aware as to whether or not there was a substantial life insurance policy?
Oh, yes.
On the life of your son?
Yes.
Do you know how much it was for?
$1 million.
$1 million?
Yes, sir.
Are you aware whether or not there was a substantial NBA pension also with your son's?
Yes.
Do you know how much that was?
$150,000.
$150,000?
Yes.
I have no further questions, Judge Passing.
Thank you, Mr. Hagerman. Mr. Perry, you may proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. I only have one question for you. Do you remember what day of that weekend your daughter's baby shower was?
It was on Saturday.
Saturday. Thank you, Your Honor.
There she is. You can ask her.
Well, you were in here. I can't do that.
Okay.
And I'm sorry for your loss, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Marion.
Yes, sir.
I know it's been 12 years. I want to offer you my condolences for the loss of your son.
Thank you.
I appreciate your patience over the years. You're excused from any additional testimony in this case, Ms. Marion. You are free to stay and watch the rest of the trial if you have the opportunity to do so. I would encourage you to do so. You cannot discuss your testimony with anyone or allow anyone to talk to you about what they said in court. Thank you for being here. You may step down from the witness stand, watch your step. And if you can watch the rest of the trial, I encourage you to do so. Watch your step, ma'am.
was Deborah Marion, the mother of the victim in this case, NBA star Lorenzen Wright. Really hard testimony to watch. The emotions that she had, tears in her eyes as she identified a picture, talking about the funeral and that she didn't have a black suit because she didn't believe in the dark. It needed to be light. That tells you all about what high regard she held her son in. She has just finished testifying. We are going to take this opportunity to take a break. When we come back, we'll take you back for more trial against Billy Ray Turner.
At joincalibrate.com.
Thank you for joining us for our live trial coverage of Tennessee versus Billy Ray Turner. This is the case in which Lorenzen Wright, who played for the NBA, is the victim. On the stand now, we'll take you back into court, is Claudia Robinson. She is the cousin of the ex-wife of the victim in this case. The ex-wife is Shira Wright. And note, she actually pled guilty a few years ago to facilitation of first-degree murder of Lorenzen Wright. So this is her cousin. Let's take you back into the courtroom live.
Well, she just kept saying it has to be him or me. She always stood on it has to be him or me. Just him or me, but he has to be gone. And, I'm like, well, what about your kids? Surely this can't be true.
You don't want to believe that?
I didn't want to believe it. It's not
Did you, in fact, believe that Lorenzen would put a hit out on her?
I didn't. I did not.
But we now have a second occasion where she is saying, he's got to go, it's him or me.
Right.
We have a second occasion where Mr. Turner is there.
Right.
And now this J person is there.
Right.
And Mr. Turner, at any point in time during that conversation, said, I don't want any part of this, or what are you talking about? That's crazy.
No.
It wasn't very clear what she was saying.
It was.
And how did that conversation end?
It ended, frankly, because I left away from it. I don't know what they said after that because I didn't like the comment that she made after I was saying, well, what about your children? And it's no way, they should be put through anything like that.
And what did she say?
She was told that I was going to be a problem. And she said, no, she's not because she can get off too.
Who said that you were going to be a problem?
Jay.
And Sherry said that you could get offed too?
Yes.
Meaning killed?
Yes.
Mr. Turner have anything to say about that?
He didn't say anything.
I know it was said during open statements, and I think you said it before, you described Mr. Turner as being slow. Would that be true?
Slow to react or respond, yes, but intellectually, I don't know him enough to say intellectually he's a slow individual, but he's very, just more laid back than others and just kind of.
More introverted?
More so, yes, sir.
When he was at the house all these times and you're at the house all these times, did you guys ever have much conversation?
We didn't.
And he was supposed to be the yard man?
Yes, sir.
Was there much of a yard at that house?
A little bit in the front. There was a pool in the back.
Was the whole back concrete?
From what I can remember, I think so. Or the majority of it was.
Did you ever see him cutting the yard over there?
I was never outside when he was working on the yard, no, sir.
Now, after these conversations, do you hear anything more about this before you find out Lorenzen Wright is dead?
No, I didn't. But I kind of distanced myself from being over there too, so I didn't hear.
So after that second conversation, you quit coming around as much?
Yes, I did.
Was that disturbing to you, that entire conversation?
Very much so.
And then some days later, or some weeks later, you hear Lorenzen is dead.
Right.
And in fact, murdered.
Right.
What were you feeling at that point?
Surely this has not happened, and I hope to God she didn't have anything to do with it. But more so, it's just like, okay, now what? Because I know that what was said to me was said to me.
Were you afraid?
Of course.
Were you afraid for your safety?
Right, because if she had anything to do with it or in any kind of way, and she had already said, if you say something or there's something, coming from you, then this could be you too.
Were you afraid they would try and put you in it just because you were there?
Of course.
Now, let's fast forward to late 2016, early 2017. Did the police come to talk to you about this case?
Yes, they did.
And did you answer their questions?
I did.
Did they know you before they talked to you? They had heard there was a pregnant female.
They didn't know me.
Okay. But you were in fact a pregnant female?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So they came and you told them what happened?
Yes, sir.
Did you cooperate with the police?
I did.
Did you in fact even, did they have you make some phone calls for them?
Yes, they did.
To
sheriff.
To sheriff.
Yes, sir.
And at this point in time, were they actively investigating sheriff, right?
Yes, sir, they were.
And Mr. Billy Turner at that
Yes,
time?
sir.
And did they direct you to call her and talk to her and try and get her to say things?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. And did you, in fact, have several recorded phone call conversations with sheriff?
I did.
And they were telling you what to say,
Yes, sir.
essentially? Did she ever actually say anything that would implicate her in those conversations?
She didn't. Not that I know.
Was it her habit to talk on the phone about criminal things?
Oh, no.
Now, prior to the end of 2016, would there occasionally be news items about Lorenzen Wright in the news?
There would.
Probably a couple things every year?
Right.
Even if it's just, wow, this case still hasn't been solved type of deal?
Right.
Would she mention those things on the phone to you?
She would.
Now, after this thing about the gun got released, did she call you about that?
No.
Never talked about that?
She didn't talk about that.
Did the police, in fact, try to get you to talk to her about that on the phone?
They did.
And she wasn't talking about it?
She didn't have much.
Yes, sir.
All right, while there's a little break there in the testimony, I want to welcome our guest legal analyst, a frequent guest from Los Angeles, California, former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani. Nima, always delightful to have you. Tell me what you think so far of the state coming out with first the mother of Lorenzen Wright, the victim in this case, and now Claudia Robinson describing what the ex-wife said to her about the victim.
Ashley, I agree with you. The state of Tennessee has come out very strong in this case. You like to start with the victim, and in this case, the victim is deceased. So who better than the victim's mother? And very powerful emotional testimony here from the mother and then other relatives of the deceased. I mean, the jury has to be really sort of just holding back tears because I was just hearing a mother talking about her son who was tragically murdered.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was very hard to watch, very emotional. And this happened 12 years ago. And so certainly this is something she's been living with for a very long time. Nima, you're going to stay with us. We want to go back live to the courtroom.
So you're all kind of in the same room, but there's different areas set up.
Right.
Okay. I'll pass the picture.
Thank you, Ms. Schofield. Mr. Perry, may proceed.
Thank you, John. Back in the fall of 2017, when was the first time that you had come in contact with the members of the Memphis Police Department? Do you remember?
When I was brought in for questioning.
Right. Do you remember, was that the first time that you
Yes, that was the very first time.
were you brought in by the police yourself, or did you drive yourself to a precinct?
I was driven and trailed by the police.
All right. And when you had called your cousin, when you were saying that you were contacted at school, you're saying that that was something that you were just trying to get information from sheriff, right?
Right.
And so they never had come to your school early that morning and talked to your principal about anything, did they?
No, they did not.
And the police, where did they come into direct contact with you?
I was at the gas station by my school.
How did you know to go to the gas station by your school, or did the police?
No, I left school and I went to the gas station.
How did you know to leave school and go to the gas station to meet the police?
I knew. I got off work. I was leaving work for the day and I had to get gas. So I was literally at the gas pump getting gas when the police were.
And they came up on you?
They did.
All right. How many police officers came up on you?
One.
All right. So one police officer
Yes.
approached you
Yes.
by himself.
One police officer approached me.
He said, come downtown with me.
No, he didn't.
What did he say?
He said, we need to talk to you. And then that's when he said, you have to follow us for questioning.
And so that morning, you did not go to the doctor's office early. Correct?
That morning?
Right. That morning, you didn't go to the doctor's office.
No.
You weren't late for school. Right?
I went to work.
No, I'm asking you.
Right.
You weren't late for school.
No.
You didn't go to the doctor's office that morning, correct?
No, I didn't.
And did you that morning tell the police that you had gotten $10,000 of hush money?
I never told the police I got any money.
Did you tell the police about the fact that you were supposed to get $10,000 hush money?
I never told the police I was supposed to get any money.
Did they tell you about the fact that you were supposed to get $10,000 hush money?
No, they didn't.
All right. And so today is the first time that you're hearing about $10,000 hush money?
It is.
All right. And in addition to that, did you tell the police how many times you went to pick Jay up?
I didn't tell the police I ever picked Jay up.
Did the police ask you about picking Jay up?
They never asked me about picking Jay up.
And so you never said to the police that you picked Jay up?
I never told them I picked Jay up.
And you had never gone to Batesville at all with Sheriff for the purpose of picking up Jay?
I never went to with Sheriff to pick up Jay.
And you said that prior to today, had you had an opportunity to meet with the DA's office in this case?
What do you mean?
Have you met with Mr. Schofield in this case, or Mr. Hager?
I was subpoenaed, yes.
No, I'm not talking about the subpoena. I'm saying, have you had a meeting with them prior to today? Yes or no?
No. I had questioning. When I was told I had to go down for questioning, other than that, no.
So you went to questioning with the police department, right?
Right.
And prior to coming into this courtroom, you haven't had any conversations with either Mr. Hager or Mr. Schofield?
Well, initially when we were supposed to go to trial, before.
That would be a conversation before.
Right.
All right, and you met.
It was like this, yes.
All right. You said that you heard a conversation in the kitchen, and you said that Jay and Billy came into the kitchen together, right?
I said Jay entered and Billy entered, yes.
Was Billy already there, or was Jay coming in from somewhere that you didn't see or know of?
Right. Jay was coming in from somewhere I didn't see or know of. Billy was already at the house that day.
Billy was there. Now, you remember talking with Shara, and I guess it was to coerce her into talking to you at the behest of the police department. You remember that?
I did.
And you remember talking to her at length about some of her romantic interests, right? And some of the questions that she was supposed to have been, that you were supposed to be asked.
Yes, some of the questions that I was asked to ask her, yes.
You never made any mention about Billy being a romantic interest or boyfriend or anything like that while you were on the phone with Shara during this scripted conversation, did you?
No.
Let me take a few more steps back, and then we're going to get into some of those conversations in a few minutes. You signed an immunity agreement for prosecution.
You're watching cross-examination by Mr. Perry, and he just tried to plant the seed for this jury that she was supposed to get $10,000 hush money. Of course, the witness denied that. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll go back into this courtroom.